On March 18, 1965, a cosmonaut opened a hatch, pushed off gently, and floated free above the Earth. No human being had ever done this before. 12 minutes later, he was fighting for his life, unable to fit back through the same hatch he had just come out of. And the spacewalk wasn't even the most dangerous part of what was about to happen to him. His name was Alexei Leonov, a 30-year-old Soviet Air Force pilot, and the mission was Voskhod 2. The goal was simple to state and immensely difficult to achieve: become the first human being to leave a spacecraft and float freely in the vacuum of space. Welcome to Solar Hour, where we uncover the strangest, most dangerous, and most astonishing stories our solar system has to offer. To make this possible, Soviet engineers designed an inflatable airlock, a fabric tunnel that could extend from the side of the capsule and be discarded afterward. Leonov wore a specially designed suit called the Burkut, built specifically for the pressures and temperature swings of open space. On the day of the mission, with fellow cosmonaut Pavel Belyayev remaining inside the capsule, Leonov opened the outer hatch and pushed away. For the first time in human history, a person was floating entirely outside a spacecraft, connected to it by nothing but a tether. The view, by every account Leonov later gave, was overwhelming. The Earth curved away beneath him, silent and enormous. For a little over 12 minutes, he maneuvered outside the capsule, tumbling gently at the end of his tether, becoming the first person to ever experience open space directly. It was, by any measure, an extraordinary triumph for the Soviet space program, broadcast to a watching world as proof of their continued lead in the space race. But a problem had already begun developing, one that wasn't part of any plan. In the near-total vacuum of space, with no outside pressure pushing back against it, Leonov's suit began to expand. It stiffened and ballooned outward, exactly the way a balloon inflates when nothing is holding it back. By the time his allotted time outside was ending, the suit had swollen enough that Leonov's hands could no longer reach the camera controls mounted on his chest. His feet had slipped partway out of his boots. His fingers had pulled loose inside his gloves. The suit, in effect, no longer fit the way it had minutes earlier. When Leonov made his way back toward the airlock and attempted to re-enter it, he found the suit had become too rigid and too large to fit through the opening. The airlock itself was not spacious. It had been sized specifically for a suited cosmonaut with very little margin to spare. A balloon suit, stiff at every joint, simply would not bend enough to pass through it. Leonov was, for a genuinely dangerous stretch of time, stuck outside his own spacecraft in vacuum with a limited and diminishing air supply. There was no rescue plan for this scenario. No one else could leave the capsule to help him. Whatever happened next was entirely up to Leonov himself. His solution broke explicit mission protocol. He opened a valve on his own suit and began venting pressure, deliberately lowering it below the safety margins engineers had set. It was a genuine gamble. Too little pressure risked decompression sickness, or worse, inside a suit with no way to quickly reverse the choice once made. But it was the only option that gave him any real chance of bending his limbs enough to fit back through the airlock at all. As his suit slowly deflated, Leonov found he could finally flex his knees and elbows again, and began working his way back into the airlock, head first rather than feet first as originally planned. It was an improvised, undignified, and extremely difficult maneuver, executed under real-time pressure, with his air supply steadily running down. He made it. Leonov pulled himself fully inside the airlock and sealed it behind him, becoming not only the first person to walk in space, but the first to survive a genuine crisis while doing it. For decades, the full details of just how close that moment came to disaster were kept quiet, a closely guarded secret of the Soviet space program. The spacewalk alone would have been enough to secure Voskhod 2's place in history. But the mission's most dangerous chapter hadn't even happened yet. As Leonov and Belyaev prepared for re-entry the following day, the capsule's automatic guidance system malfunctioned, refusing to properly orient the spacecraft for its descent. With the automated system unreliable, Belyaev took manual control, a first for the Soviet program, and one that came with no guarantee of precision. The manual re-entry burn worked, but the delay it caused meant the capsule came down far from its intended landing zone. Instead of the open step where recovery teams were positioned and waiting, Leonov and Belyaev landed deep in a snow-covered forest in the Ural Mountains. It was one of the most remote, difficult-to-reach areas in the entire Soviet Union, hundreds of kilometers from where anyone expected them to be. Recovery crews knew roughly where the capsule had come down, but thick forest and deep snow made it impossible to land any aircraft nearby. Leonov and Belyaev were forced to spend the night inside the capsule, in the forest, with the hatch effectively unusable in the freezing conditions. Outside temperatures dropped to roughly 30 degrees below 0 Celsius. The cold itself, not any predator, was the genuine danger they faced through the night. With their sweat-soaked suits from the exertion of the spacewalk and re-entry now freezing in the frigid air, both men had to actively work to stay warm through the long, dark hours. It took rescue teams on skis nearly 2 days to physically reach them, cutting a path through the snow and forest by hand. When help finally arrived, Leonov and Belyaev were cold, exhausted, and profoundly relieved, but alive, having survived not one but two entirely separate life-threatening emergencies in a single mission. Publicly, the Soviet Union celebrated Voskhod 2 as an unqualified triumph, the first spacewalk in human history, another milestone claimed ahead of the Americans. The full story, the ballooning suit, the improvised depressurization, the failed guidance system, and the freezing night in the forest, stayed classified for decades. It wasn't until years later, as Soviet-era records were gradually declassified, that the true scale of what Leonov survived became fully public. Every spacewalk conducted since has benefited from what engineers learned that day about suit pressure, mobility, and airlock design. Leonov himself went on to have a long career in the Soviet space program, later training for a mission to the moon that Soviet setbacks ultimately prevented from happening. He remained, for the rest of his life, the answer to one of spaceflight's most fundamental firsts, the first human being to ever leave a spacecraft and float free. What rarely gets mentioned alongside that achievement is just how close those 12 minutes came to being his last.